the Les Manley series of games. Yeah, it's only 2 games, thankfully. And there's not much I can really say on this. I can't praise this series, especially after playing it. Now, there was some good qualities to it, not many. I mean, let's face it, the character's name is Lester Manley. Everyone calls him Les. He was your stereotypical IT nerd of the 80s. And well, let's face it, the game was made by Accolade. Now, they do have some success with certain things. This wasn't one of them. And the stories of the games are very period specific, especially with some of the behaviors that they show in the games. I mean, the first game's story fits with something that was going on in the late 80s, early 90s. Elvis had only been dead for a little over a decade, and people were still seeing Elvis. I see Elvis. Elvis isn't dead. Elvis sightings, you know. And so basically, the plot of the first game is Lester going in search of the king. Yeah, I mean, the story for the second game. I mean, it's right out of the quote B movies. It aspires to be a B movie because there is so much outlandish in it. So much outlandish things in it. And my god, the games used very crappy logic. I mean, it was kind of logic that takes you from, let's see. I mean, everybody pretty much knows in Pennsylvania, my home state, you got the 2 big cities on each side of the state. Pittsburgh on the western side of the state, and Philadelphia on the eastern side. The logic of this game would take you from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh by way of Sydney, Australia. And hell, there's some cartoonish logic even to it. To the games. Now, I got to say this. The first one, the game's graphics were great. A bit ahead of their time in quality. So, that's a plus for the first game. And so for the second game, which was released a year later, they decided to use photos for the people and, of course, hand drawn or designed scenes. And that just. What were they freaking thinking? I don't remember if there was any scoring system in the second game, but the first game's scoring system was laughable. I don't mean I don't mean that it was good or like it was funny. Uh, I mean, I played some time ago. I played Freddy Farkas Frontier Pharmacist. Game has 1,000 points in it, and you get 500 for for your first actual action in the game of unlocking the store. And the game is meant to be funny, and it is funny. But in Search for the King, everything you do is 10 points. There are 50 actions in the game that you can get points for. And I'm like, uh, really? I mean, if they wanted to really make the scoring system mean something, they would have given different point values to each task, especially if it's not something you really have to do in the game. Filling a bottle of water, 10 points. Drink the bottle of water, 10 points. Do you really need that? No. Answer the phone ringing in the desert. Is that worth it? 10 points. Yeah, well. And you get to see the main girl in the game and very suggestive negligee. Of course, she told him she'd call him halfway through the game. Yeah, and these games do acknowledge that they're games. Uh, it makes me cringe. Personally, I think that the sound is better off being shut off. And personally, the second would be better off never having been made, in my opinion. Now, I bought these on sale off GOG when I got them. So, I figure for the price I paid for the two would have been at least a decent price for the first game. Because free is not enough for the second game. They would have to pay me to attend I would rather attend 3 political conventions than play the second game again. And that's going to be the most political I get right now. Just saying that. The game. They were supposed to rival Leisure Suit Larry. They failed. They did attempt for humor. And they even got meta with it, which is actually probably one of the better things about this game. I mean, they obviously went with the quote, using the sex appeal in that horrible way that seemed to exist in the 70s and 80s. I mean, in the first game, to get keys to a locked door, you have to distract the boss. So you got to go in, ask him about a raise, and when he summons in your friend who is also his secretary, you're supposed to snatch the keys while he's busy looking at her. I will admit that at least the only plus that the first game had was that it was actually featured as a game of the month in Game Player's magazine back in the early, like in 1990. I mean, they would preview a game, show you basics on how to get through it. It's like a mini walkthrough. And that's where the first game, you didn't even get to play out the final sequence. It just did so automatically. And if you forgot something on your way there, well, you're fucking screwed. But that was tend to be normal with games at that time. You could soft lock yourself without knowing it. Of course, the game gives you a hint that you may have soft locked yourself. The second game, while it has somewhat of a playable ending sequence, it doesn't make up for the bullshit that story was. I will admit, Les Manley can be somewhat memorable, if not idiotic. The idea of the character Helmet being the world's smallest man, that was a clever idea in and of itself to implement. But in the end, I'm glad I finally played it and found out how bad it really is. If you want to get this game franchise for how to do a Leisure Suit Larry game completely and utterly wrong, I do recommend, at least if you have to get the games, I would highly recommend just getting the first game and pretend you never knew about the second game. I would suggest never getting the second game unless it's part of a bundle sale where the sale price of both games is less than the price for the first game. Because I do not ever want to play that second game again. It was painful enough. The using the live pictures with the cartoonish background just hurt to look at. If you play the second game, it'll make you think that Ed Wood was actually a capable director in his lifetime. Because if Ed Wood had directed something like Lost in L.A., it would have been a hell of a lot better. And if they were to turn these games into a movie, I actually think Uwe Boll would actually improve it. And that's saying a lot when if you know his history with video game movie adaptations. And that's all I'm going to say about this train wreck of a series. In the end, buy it if you really, really want it. But if you don't like it, don't blame me. I didn't make you buy it. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for listening to my little rant here about the games. This video is actually probably shorter than both of them. Of the ones for the actual games. Which is odd because Series 1s tend to run longer. Even if there's only 2 in the series. But that's all I'm going to say about that series. I can now safely say it is off my computer. And take care all. Bye.